Hey guys, I'm Sage Valentine and I'm back here to review another episode of AMC's The Walking Dead. This recap slash review video is all about Season 7, Episode number 16, entitled The First Day of the Rest of Your Life. On a side note, AMC needs to cut down on those commercials. I'm sure a lot of you agree with me, they really do. On another side note, you're probably wondering why it took me so long to review this. Because normally I have it done the week after the episode airs, or previously I would have it done within a few days after, or the day after, or the day of, so on and so forth. But this episode was hard for me to rewatch because of the fact that Sasha died, and I really liked her as a character. And the actress, Sonequa Martin Green, she's such a nice person. If you ever get a chance to go to Walker Stalker, and you get a chance to meet her, everything they said about her on Talking Dead and behind the scenes is true. Such a nice lady. In fact, I have yet to meet any nasty cast members or anything at all when I go to, or when I've attended Walker Stalker, because the cast, both living characters and characters who have died or characters that have disappeared, everybody that I've met has been nice and friendly and welcoming. So let's just get back to this review. Pretty much the opening scene brought forth all these feelings of sadness for me because it was clear that Sasha had died, and basically they showed her taking her last breath and passing on. The song that Bear McCreary chose, and Bear McCreary is the dude that picks all the music for Walking Dead. He has also done music for other shows. One in particular that stands out in my mind because it ended for good was Black Sails. He created that awesome title song. It's an amazing song and an amazing series. Anyway, Donny Hathaway's song, beautiful song. And again, we see Sasha take her last breath in that scene, and then it goes to the title credits. So we end up seeing different vignettes throughout the episode of Sasha's final thoughts before she dies. I love that scene, that flashback with Abraham when he woke her up, and then they kissed, and that kiss was so sweet, so wonderful. I mean, the love that those two had was beautiful, just as beautiful as Maggie and Glenn being together, just as beautiful as Rick and Michonne being together, and just as beautiful as all the rest of the unspoken relationships and spoken of relationships that we have seen throughout the series. It was just so beautiful, and it was sad that we didn't get to see that kiss prior to this. And we learned that that scene happened before the crew left to take Maggie to Hilltop because Maggie was having those pains. Sasha begged Abraham not to go. Kind of makes you wonder who would have died if Abe and Sasha hadn't joined the group. Even though they were going to, there's always that what if in the back of my mind, like who else would have died? It's a really good question. So Negan really liked Sasha. I mean, really liked her. And he, later in the episode, basically says, listen, if you were a guy, it doesn't even matter. You would still have me wrapped around your finger. He's intrigued. Negan's pretty much an equal opportunity dude. And in this scene that I'm talking about, he pretty much wants Sasha to help him solve some stuff. And he had the kitchen staff make her some smiley face pancakes, which was actually pretty sweet. Negan would be an okay guy if he wasn't a murderous madman. He kind of would. And on a side note, whenever I say I like Negan in these videos, you need to know that the Negan that I like comes later. I am not into the whole Negan killing people, shooting people type thing. I'm more on the Negan that comes later on. We'll talk about him when we get to him. Now back to this review. So we see a scene of Sasha and Maggie sitting on that log. Now, you probably forgot what scene that's from. We'll have to go all the way back to season 5 briefly. And pretty much in that scene, in season 5, it's after the storm and after the group had to hold the barn doors closed or shut or whatever. Sasha and Maggie go outside, they sit together, and all of a sudden Aaron pops up. So those two are sitting out there a couple minutes or seconds before Aaron pops up. So we left off in episode 15 with that scene of Dwight coming to tell Rick and the crew, like, listen, I want to help you guys defeat Negan. And then Daryl basically rushes forward and tries to kill him. Yeah, well, Dwight reveals that he wants Negan dead. And when Negan dies, all of this mess will cease. But the question is, can they trust him? Now, the Dwight in the comic books, at first, no one is sure if they can trust him. But if you continue reading the comics, you realize that Dwight is a trustworthy person. So I'm not mad at all of the people who are just like, I can't stand Dwight, I hate him, he's going to try to get our group killed and such and such. If you haven't read the comics, that's pretty much how you would see him. But Dwight's an okay dude right now in the comics, but you'll see how they get to it as the show's story progresses. So Tara wants Daryl to kill Dwight, and I'm cracking up like, Tara, wow. Especially since, don't forget, Dwight is the one that shot Denise in the eye, and I'm not purposely scratching my eyebrow near my eye for dramatic effect. It literally itches. So you can't really be that surprised that Tara would want him dead. Still funny though. So all of a sudden, Daryl calms down and leaves Dwight be for the moment. Dwight apologizes, saying that he was not aiming for Denise, which he wasn't, which is pretty funny when you think about it, especially being that I'm a comic book reader, and I read the scene where it happens to Abraham, and in that scene, Dwight didn't really give a damn, but this Dwight seems to care more at this point in the story. So Dwight says Negan doesn't own him, and he did what he did for someone else, and that someone else is Sherry. The actress who plays Sherry is Christine Evangelista. She moved on to a show, I believe the show is called The Arrangement or something like that. And that show is doing well, and it was renewed for a second season. Now, she has joined the list with Corey Hawkins of actors so far who have disappeared and moved on to other shows, and we don't know if they are alive or dead. But given the success of this new show, is Sherry going to live, or is Sherry dead, or just going to remain MIA? Because I do believe with Heath, his storyline will be addressed. You will find out where he ended up. You're not going to like it. And through that, we're going to meet a new baddie. And Miss Thang is something else, definitely. So, Rosita reveals that Sasha is with Negan and the Saviors. They have her. Dwight warns Rick and the crew that Negan is on his way, and he says that he can help them buy some time. He has a plan. And if all goes according to plan, then they can wipe out the soldiers of the sanctuary and get the workers onto Rick's side, which is a nod to what happens in the future, just in case you didn't know. So Daryl tells Rick later on that he will kill Dwight when it's done, no matter what. And Rick basically tells Daryl, listen, if he's lying, this mess is already over. So we see another flashback involving Sasha, where Abraham tells her that he has to go on this journey with Rick to take Maggie to the hilltop. And Sasha starts talking about how she had a dream where he died. Now, Negan tells Sasha his plan and says that everyone will be shocked when they find out that she is on the Savior's side, but really we know she's not, but Negan thinks that she is. And Sasha is convinced that no one has to die. Negan keeps saying, yes, somebody does have to die. And Sasha says again, no one has to die. Negan agrees to one person just for her, and she agrees. But Negan didn't pick up on the subtle clues that Sasha was basically saying, okay, somebody can die. Me. But she said it without saying it. And I don't have to repeat the whole Sasha has him wrapped around her little finger thing again. So we get another flashback of Sasha and Maggie on the log. And then we see Maggie talking, and she's talking, I think, to Jesus and Enid, and little Judith is down at the bottom on the floor because we can hear her making sounds and stuff. They don't have Oceanside, but they have their guns, and by they she means Alexandria. The Sanctuary has Sasha. Dwight wants them to trust him, and Daryl wants them to trust Dwight. And Gregory is MIA. So the question is, where the hell is Gregory? Maggie decides that she wants to lead the Hilltop into battle. And it's a scary concept, but it's something she's going to have to do. And yet another nod to Maggie becoming a leader like she is in the comic book. So we get to the scene of Ezekiel and the rest of the knights, along with Carol. They're walking on foot, headed towards Alexandria, and they come to a familiar barrier made of carts. And they're just like, this can't be Richard because Richard is dead. And lo and behold, it ends up being Morgan. Morgan tells them that he wants to fight alone. Carol is able to talk a little bit of sense into him. And Morgan reveals that he put that barrier up to stop the walkers. The writers gave us a conversation between Ezekiel and Morgan, and I love that. I love the dynamic between those two, especially when they're talking. Their conversations, top notch. And Morgan reveals that he feels stuck, and he admits that he wants the Savior's dead. Ezekiel tells Morgan to join up because the kingdom needs him. And he notices that Morgan is wearing Ben's armor and tells Morgan, you are not stuck. We shall defeat them. No one else will suffer. And they continue to march on, and we see adorable computer-generated image, aka Shiva. And Ezekiel and Carol look to one another, and that look is pretty cool. Because you got to think about how Ezekiel and Carol's relationship was at first. Carol was kind of iffy about him, but she seems to have warmed up to him, which is another cool thing. So Rick and the crew pull in, leading the scavengers. So they're not the trash people, not the heapsters. Apparently they're the scavengers. And he's leading them into Alexandria, and they're riding in garbage trucks and motorcycles. Now, Jadis goes a little bit too far in this scene because she seems to like Alexandria, and she seems alright with, at this point, with working with Alexandria to fight Negan. And then she makes this comment about Rick having sex with her and kind of says like she's going to do it to Michonne, and Michonne is just like, we need to get to work, and Rick is trying to defuse the situation. And Jadis turns around, and Pollyanna McIntosh is the actress, and she's like facing the camera, and she's looking at the person and just kind of looks at another heapster or scavenger or whatever. She's just like, and I'm like, dude, you just dude, lady, you're trying to sleep with this woman's boyfriend, husband. What is wrong with Jadis? I'll be so glad when Jadis goes. Man, after watching this episode, I can't stand her, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I also kind of wish that they had included a scene of Michonne kicking her butt. So Rosita, Daryl, and Aaron are setting up a bomb to go off in one of the trucks. So the Saviors come across on their way to Alexandria. these trees that were cut down in the road. And now that I remember it, if memory serves, Dwight did something, I think, with Alexandria, or maybe he did it by himself and cut down those trees to kind of put an obstacle in the road. Eugene decides that he wants to step up and talk to Team Family, Alexandria and such, and diffuse the situation. Now, Michonne is positioned on the roof with this shady scavenger chick, and I don't trust that heifer. Yes, I wrote that in my notes. Especially when she says she'll watch the other side of the tower, and that smile she flashed at me was creepy. And the way she said, "we win," she wasn't talking about we as in Alexandria and the scavengers. Apparently, she was talking about just the scavengers. So we get back to Sasha, and she flashes back to a scene where Abraham basically convinces her to go to the hilltop with him and the rest of the group, because she wants to sit this whole situation out. And Sasha tells Eugene in another scene that she will not get used to the sanctuary. So in this part of the episode, she's pretty much telling Eugene, without revealing what she's about to do in front of all of these listening ears, that she's going to do it. She's going to kill herself. And then we see more of the conversation between Maggie and Sasha on the log. Now, the scavengers signal with these turkey sounds, and I'm like, these people are so strange. And then it's time for them to get into position. Now, Eugene pops out first when the saviors pull up to the gate. And Eugene's telling the group, like, you guys need to comply here, because there are only two options. You can either live, thrive, or you can die. And Rick is just like, I don't want to hear what you're saying. I want to talk to Negan. Eugene says that he's Negan. And it looks like he is fully on the sanctuary side. But again, I truly believe that Eugene is just going through the motions and that he has a plan. And Rick tells Rosita to set off her bomb, and it doesn't. And that's when I'm just like, well, who the heck sabotaged that bomb? And then the scavengers reveal themselves to be the snakes that I thought they were in the beginning. They pretty much played Rick and the crew, and they open up the gates for Negan and the saviors, and they turn their guns and such on Rick and the crew. And Jadis puts a gun to Rick's head. Michonne sees Negan walking in with the saviors, and the chick on the tower turns her gun on Michonne. Now, Rick wants the scavengers to put their guns down, but it becomes clear that the scavengers made a deal with Negan and the saviors. And some of you guys watching this will say, well, maybe Jadis is the one that was the little birdie. Honestly, she might have been one birdie, but I still think that Gregory was. Negan is disappointed with Rick and the crew. I guess he realized that they would try to kill the saviors, try to kill him, but the idea of killing Eugene, it really surprises him. And Jeffrey in that lean like this, every time he does it, all that I do is crack up, because his interpretation of Negan is hilarious. It's honestly hilarious. Anyway, Rick sees a coffin, and Sasha is inside, but little do they know Sasha's already dead. And if she's not already dead, she has taken her last breath within the moment of arrival and Negan running his mouth. Somewhere between that time, she took her last breath. Anyways, Negan talks about how he likes Sasha and she is alive and well in this coffin. And he brought her so he would not have to kill anyone. But now that all this has happened, he wants all the guns, the pool table, someone to die by Lucille, and it's Rick's choice. Daryl, such and such, or Sasha dies, and then possibly everyone else dies. But Negan says he doesn't want to kill her. It would really hurt him because he seems to really like her. We see another flashback where Abraham and Sasha kiss, and pretty much Abraham starts talking about sacrifice and how that's the way that someone else can go on living. I also believe that this conversation involving the mention of Maggie carrying the future and of Sasha going on this trip with Abe and the rest of the group is the writer's way of preparing us for Sasha's death, because they could have just given it to us in one whole scene, but they chose to break it down and ease us into it, and I am so glad that they did that, because it was good to see Abraham and Sasha together. Their love was beautiful and genuine. And again, I'm happy that the writers did not make Sasha truly like Holly, because Holly didn't give a damn. Holly messed with Abraham and knew it hurt Rosita. Sasha felt bad, and that's why she told Abraham, listen, I'm not getting with you until you fix this and figure out what you want to do. And when he did it, that's when they got together. So Sasha's talking to Eugene, and she basically tells him what she's going to do without really telling him, because remember the listening ears. He gives her an iPod, the first generation one, and he reveals that he is not with that plan of her killing herself. And Sasha says she's not giving up on Eugene. And Sasha tells Negan that she wants to go to sleep, and that's why she's riding in that coffin. All she needs is a bottle of water. And Negan is not thinking at this point, not putting two and two together. That doesn't mean he's an idiot, but it means that he was not paying attention, because Sasha had all the signs that she was going to do something to herself. And he was so focused on Rick and everything, he didn't see that. But he starts to put two and two together at the end of the episode, though. And Negan says he appreciates what she's doing, going in the coffin and everything, and you can tell that he respects her. So Sasha is in the coffin. She's listening to Donny Hathaway. She takes that pill and she swallows it, and it works fast. So when Negan opens up the coffin, Sasha pops out as a walker, jumps on Negan, he falls off the truck, and the battle begins. I mean, Michonne and that heifer on the tower were fighting, and all these people said, Michonne's so weak because that girl beat her behind. I'm like, Michonne held her own. There was only so much that she could do, but the fact that she survived that fight means that that's a strong chick, because that girl could have pushed her off that tower, but Michonne found the upper hand. And that is that. Rosita got shot, so she was down for the count. There were so many bullets and shots and everything. That whole battle sequence was badass. The choreography, in my opinion, was perfect. Negan was so sad that Sasha died. One dude pulled Sasha off of Negan and got his face eaten. Poor Rick can't help out at first. Don't forget, Jada still has that gun to his head. So this heifer, Jadis, yes, I'm calling her a heifer, shot Rick in his side, and I was like, how did I miss that the first time I watched it? I was like, okay, it's time for her to go. I'll be happy when she is kaput. Daryl's killing it, kicking butt and taking names. Scott and Carl shooting side to side, fantastic. I'm just so worried about Michonne, even though I know how the scene is going to play out, because it plays out exactly as it does in the comic book. The only thing is that the fight happens in the tower that is similar to the one that fell in season, I believe that was season 6. Remember when the tower fell and it took the wall down? And that fight happened, and it was Andrea instead of Michonne, and it was Andrea fighting a male savior. Okay. Poor Rick is led by Jadis, and we see all these dead Alexandrians. It's so, so sad. So we see Carl surrounded by all these saviors and scavengers, and there's guns pointed to him, and he's on his knees. Negan threatens to kill Carl and makes Rick kneel as well. So that heifer, the scavenger chick on the tower, is choking Michonne, and Michonne stabs her with a broken pot piece, because during that fight and everything, they're breaking everything at the top of that thing. So again, Rick is forced to kneel. Jadis tries to do that whole bargaining thing with Negan, and she learns pretty quick not to mess with or try to shortchange Negan, because he's smiling, but his eyes show murder. That's the one thing that I liked about Negan. Negan could put on that smile, but don't be fooled, because he will stab you in the neck. Not that that's a good thing, but I'm saying, like, watch yourself. So Negan is upset again because he says that Rick underestimated him, and now he's going to have to start over, and he tells Rick, you're not going to win. And again, it doesn't look good for Michonne. Rick looks around and sees the state of Alexandria, and it appears that the scavengers and the saviors have the upper hand. And it looks like Michonne has died because Rick hears a woman screaming as she falls from the tower. Negan mocks Rick for losing someone important, and that's when Rick adopts this whole I don't give a damn thing, and even as Negan tells him he's going to kill Carl and then use Lucille to take his hands, Rick tells Negan, I don't care. I'm going to kill you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but I'm going to kill you, and nothing will change that. You're already dead. Negan says okay, and as he's about to take Lucille, because he's like, I'm going to hit Carl in the head with one single swing, here comes Shiva to the rescue. Do-do-do-do. And all of a sudden, Ezekiel and the cavalry come out to save the day, and when it looks even bleaker, here comes Maggie in the hilltop, and Negan is outdone. He really believed that Maggie was dead, and she's not, and he said something like, the widow is strapped, or something. That scene was funny. That was really funny. Shiva kills another dude, Father Gabriel's shooting, Morgan is kicking butt and taking names, and he looks to Rick, and Rick looks to him, and they start fighting side by side. The scavengers retreat with smoke bombs, and all of a sudden it's the Hilltop Kingdom and Alexandria together, kicking butt and taking names, and they try to finish the battle, and the saviors retreat, and it's good to see Tobin and Aaron and Scott and all working together. And then the scavengers start shooting to stop the crew from chasing after Negan and the saviors. And then we see, and Daryl sees, that the dust has cleared and the saviors. Rick learns that the person who fell from the tower was not Michonne, it was that other heifer. The reunion between Rick and injured Michonne and Carl is the biggest, most awesome example of show, don't tell. The writers, the director, everybody, the actors showed us that Rick, Michonne, and Carl are a family. I did not have to hear Rick say, I love you. I did not have to hear him call Michonne his wife, his lover. I didn't have to hear Carl call Michonne his mother. That scene showed that they're a family. On a side note, people will hear me say that and say, Michonne's not his mother, Laurie's his mom. Yes, Laurie is his mom. But Michonne has taken over the mom duties. And pretty much in episode 610, Carl pretty much told Michonne that she is family to him, and she has become a very big maternal figure for him. So Michonne pretty much is stepmommy at this point. Negan returns to the sanctuary, And before he addresses the saviors, he turns around and looks at Eugene and says, I wonder how Sasha wound up dead. And Eugene explains, you know, you put her in the coffin, it was sealed up tight, there was very little air, then there was the tarp over it. But the question is, does Negan believe him? No. So in season 8, Eugene is going to have to move fast to enact his plan, because I believe that he has a plan, because that's why he decided to say that he is Negan. I don't believe he is 100% on board with being Negan. It's all a part of the plan. And I also think that he and Dwight have a plan as well. So Negan addresses his people like he does in the comic books. But the only thing is that he says that it's time to go to war. He doesn't do that whole long speech. I do believe that in season 8, that speech is going to pop up in another scene, though. Over the years, I've been told by fans that the show is not following the comic book. I think what people really need to say is that the show is not 100% following the comic book, but they do go back and they do tie up loose ends that were left out from the comic book, and those different scenes pop up at different times throughout the series. So I love the final voiceover with Maggie and Rick talking to each other and the different shots of Alexandria and everything. And Maggie says that she knows that Sasha sacrificed herself for the group. I love that final voiceover where Maggie is talking to Rick. Maggie reveals that she knows Sasha killed herself or sacrificed herself to save the group. Maggie talks about how if this zombie apocalypse hadn't happened, this whole group would have been like ships passing in the night. They wouldn't know each other, they'd be strangers, but now they mean everything to one another. I'm glad that the writers had Maggie put Walker Sasha down. We were finally able to see a scene of Maggie grieving that was about Maggie grieving without Maggie grieving, and then it has to do with this person and this person. It was all about Maggie. Maggie talks about how Glenn helping Rick started this whole thing. All of those shots, on a side note, that accompanied this final monologue were beautiful, poignant shots that gave me feels like I've never had before. Maggie says that this group is a family. We see Daryl looking at a wooden figure that is outside of the gate, and Dwight wrote on that figure that he didn't know. So pretty much this group can trust him because Dwight was not privy to all the information of this plan, particularly the part about the scavengers working with the sanctuary and the whole thing with Sasha. Maggie says that Glenn's decision changed everything, and it started with Rick and Glenn, and it grew, and now all of them are together to sacrifice for each other. I love how the episode showed us that log scene of Sasha and Maggie looking at one another for one final time, along with showing Maggie addressing the crowd, standing with Rick and Ezekiel and Alexandria. And in the end, I loved the final thing Maggie said, which was, Glenn made the decision, Rick. I was just following his lead, and in my opinion, that was the show's way of opening a new chapter on top of the fact that they had to say that they were sorry for what happened in the season premiere. Now, people will watch this video and say, you know, Glenn's death was based on what happened in the comic books and everything, but I do not think that the show fathomed the reaction that it got. And I don't think that AMC realized, like, I think they knew that people were going to be upset that Abraham and Glenn died. Glenn more than Abraham, but I don't think they realized that it was really going to affect the show to the point whereas the ratings started dropping and people really started to express their hate for this show. Now, I was reading an article that said that the ratings for this finale were down to season 2 lows, which I don't believe because, again, I've been watching this show since season 1, and I remember the ratings for season 2. They were down in the 2s. This finale, I think, was somewhere between, like, 11 million to 13 million, maybe a little bit more. It wasn't that low. But I can say that this was my favorite episode of the season and of the series. I think AMC needs to cut down on the commercials. I will definitely miss Sasha, but thank goodness for Star Trek because she will be on Star Trek. I believe that's Discovery. That's the name of the new show. And she will be popping up at Star Trek missions when it comes back in New York because I volunteered for the first one, so I'll probably end up volunteering for the second one as well. But anyway, guys, thank you for being so patient. I have 2 more 24 Legacy reviews to do. Like I said, I did this late because this episode definitely gave me major feels and it made me a little bit sad, but I'm glad that Sasha died on her own terms and that her death will not be an ongoing joke for the fandom. So until later this year, because apparently season 8 is rumored to be pushed back because of this writer's strike, I will be back to review season 8. And I have more surprises for this channel, so you stay tuned. I always end up messing up these words. You stay tuned, but I love you guys. Take care, and thanks for watching. Bye, guys. Love you all. Bye.